actually what we are going to do in the last lecture, what we did was to basically look at the emerging markets and what are the characteristics of innovation in emerging markets. In other words, the products and services that you basically produce in emerging markets, and if you want to market it to the people, what should be the kind of characteristics it should have, and what is the use of this ecosystem framework. If you want to, how is it useful in co-evolution and in convergence of making and creating blockbuster industries. So there are several industries which can be highly useful to the emerging market people, as well as it can create blockbuster industries. For example, they include food security. In other words, food security is providing nutritious food to all the people. There are lots of poor people in the emerging markets, billions, and if you produce food at accessible points and at affordable prices, which is nutritious, which meaning not only grains, but it has vitamins, all the minerals and other things that are needed for healthy humans. So then you are basically reducing the disease burden, and you are making the world a more livable place. So the food security is one of the things where we are going to consider this in this course of lectures, how to create using the ecosystem, because food is one thing which is highly government controlled, which is necessarily so, and is also delivery is important in a place where it should not be adulterated. It has to be hygienic, and also there are a lot of resources that are needed: land, water, and the so-called agriculture, and also the small scale industries and so on. So it is a combination of all the three sectors of the economy which uses all the resources: water, power, finance, and the human resources. So the food security is one of the important issues that one need to consider. So it is such issues like power, water, and food, they will become blockbuster industries if done properly, and a lot of attention has not been given to these sectors so far. So let us look at each of this, and let us look at the supply chain and how to redesign the supply chain. For example, in terms of product innovation, we are talking Hyundai customized small car Santro to suit Indian market with 90% local components. Well, is it innovation? Certainly it is innovation, because from a big car to small car to suit the market conditions, the roads, the poor condition of the roads and so on, and also source so that it is locally acceptable. Local components, 90% of the components from local companies is an issue. Well, Nano, for example, which is produced by Tata, is a fuel efficient 1 lakh car. 1 lakh is basically, in those days it is equivalent to 2,500, but now it is less than $2,000, and it is a car which is fuel efficient as well as a very cheap car. So basically this was innovations, because we are going to look at it, what Tatas have to go through to create a particular car of this. Cummins produces diesel engines and power generators for small retailers, regional hospitals and farmers. So these are, because the power generation is important, everybody has their own generators, particularly if you are a small retailer, and also in hospitals, because you cannot go without power, but power security is not very good in countries like India. So basically that's where Cummins has come in to the needs of the locals, of providing cheap diesel engines and power generators, diesel, and for small retailers, houses and so on. And of course, the another one that is frequently talked about is General Electric has done in the healthcare division $1,000 handheld electrocardiogram. It's a device and a portable $15,000 PC based ultrasound machine. So these ultrasound machines and others, they used to be very huge. So what these people have done is to invent these things, the electrocardiogram as well as the ultrasound machines. And they were basically, there is the innovation blowback. They are originally developed for emerging markets like ECG device for rural India and ultrasound machine for rural China, but now they are being sold in the US, pioneering new uses of such machines. Now, for example, in the hospital where surgeries are going on, if they want to have these things, they are easily locatable in the surgery place instead of having in the diagnostic centers. So basically, the new products that have come out from the emerging markets, in healthcare, in auto, as well as in power sectors, have been phenomenal. And Nano is a great example of a blue ocean strategy. There are two kinds of strategies. So one is the blue ocean strategy, another one is the red ocean strategy. We'll talk about it in the next slide. This Nano is an innovator of multiple levels, from engineering to marketing to manufacturing. The idea is to produce a car that is affordable in emerging markets. And this is the car that is there, and there is Ratan Tata standing by it, who is the owner of the Tatas, and it has to be produced in 1 lakh of Indian rupees, which is less than $2,000 today. Now, how do you produce a car which costs several thousands of dollars in less than $2,000? So it requires cheaper components, but high quality. It requires multiple levels of coordination, marketing, and so on. So basically, all this was achieved. Tata's collaborated with the suppliers like Bosch and Delphi in early stages of design, challenging them to be full partners in the nano innovation by developing low-cost components. And Tata's planned to build the Nano as a kit. They originally planned to build Nano as a kit, shipping parts of local business to a local business for assembly. The assembly now happens in the plant, and the full vehicles are transported by transport. So transport costs a lot of money. It costs 7% of the cost of the vehicle. So if you want to save on everything, so what you have to do is you may want to ship the parts as a kit. This is one of the innovations that no automobile has thought of earlier, although they have not done it already, but they basically wanted to make it as a kit so that they can send the kit by trucks to the dealers, and dealer can assemble and give the car to the purchasers. So this significantly lowers Tata's capital costs, and the company does not need to build lots of assembly plants or hire or train workers and take responsibility for shipping of the final product and so on. So although this has not happened, I mean, this is one of the plans that Tata's had, which is highly innovative. One, instead of sending a product which is fully assembled, the final product, you assemble the you send the sub-assemblies for basically they can be assembled in a local dealership shop. So the Nano shows a new world order is possible in auto industry. It shows a glimpse of what is to come. In other words, the auto industry is 100 years old, and over the time it has the doors, it has an engine, it has nothing significant. These things happened, although efficiency has increased. So Nano is the first example where people have thought of several innovations in actually manufacturing the car. So what are red and blue innovation strategies? Markets are made of both red and blue innovation strategies. What is red? The red ocean represents known market space. It is a known market space, in other words, whatever existing market where all industries currently exist. In this space, the potential for profits growth decrease as the market becomes congested and companies try to outperform each other. So how do you, in a red, this one, where if you have a lot of cars, there is a lot of market for either cell phones or cars or whatever, and if you want to enter, you are another player. So, in a congested marketplace, how do you outperform? So, you give discounts, you do dealers, you sell services instead of products. So, there are several things that people do, but that is the red ocean strategy. Blue oceans are untapped market spaces, opportunities for highly profitable growth by opening up a larger pie. That is new demand creation. So, you have a new demand that is created. How do you create a new demand? In other words, if you have telephone market, landline market, you have opened a cell phone market, wireless, then you have created a new demand for this. When you have ordinary cell phone which is used for just speaking to each other, but on the other hand, now you could do several things using the cell phone. So, cell phone is becoming a part of life. So, you are basically expanding the horizon, so you are increasing the demand. And once you increase the demand, you have a cell phone basically giving voice, and now you create a cell phone to get your emails, get your this one. So, basically you are differentiating yourself and to a larger pie. And so, that is where it becomes another way of getting profitable is basically the car or automobile is supposed to be a middle class vehicle. If you want to target those people who have motorbikes, so you should make it affordable and price it almost like a motorbike or twice that. So, that's what Tatas have done in terms of pricing, and that has created them following the Blue Earth strategy. Companies shift productivity frontier outwards by reconstructing market boundaries to create bigger economic pie. How do you create more economic pie? Another, this one that the economic pie has been created is in terms of the cell phone market. Reliance, when it started, it asked one simple question. If you are starting a cell phone company, and how do you estimate the market? The market basically consists of the landlines in those days. So, you can say, if you go to a marketing specialist, he will say only half of, you can estimate the market saying that half the landline users will be using that, and half of them who are going out often, they cannot use the landline, so they go to the cell loans and so on. So, you will get as much as the landline market. But on the other hand, if you want to create an economic pie, a bigger pie, you can ask the question, how big can I make the market? Now, how can I make the market, this one, can I make it affordable to people? Everybody can speak. Now, people are using, they don't communicate, they use the letters and so on. So, can I make a telephone call as cheap as a letter, as a postcard? So, if you want to increase your market size to make it a bigger economic pie, so what you should do is, what is the market that I can make? What are the barriers for making it an economic pie? Is it the cost? Is it the instrument? So, can I make those instruments which are cheaper, and can I make the call rates cheaper so that I can get this one? So, you can see that the Indian telephone market, which is the tele-density now is almost like 80%. That means 80% of the people, of 1.2 billion people, have a cell phone. So, this is unimaginable without the kind of thinking that the people have. So, one thing is deregulation by companies, by the countries. Another thing is having visionary companies, partners, who basically follow the so-called blue ocean strategies to gain the market. And this is what I am talking about, the pricing of the product. Tata did set the price for Nano by calculating the cost of production and adding the margin. Usually, if you are pricing a product, how do you price it? You say cost of production plus add the margin, 10%, 15% to various stakeholders and so on. That's how you get into the total price. But on the other hand, you set up the price as $2,500 as 1 lakh, and then work back. with the help of the partners, to build a $2,500 clock that would reward all involved with a small profit. Now, you are not giving anything free. So, when you are giving 2,500, you should still make profit. But how do you actually do that? So, that's the point. That's where they collaborated with to make cheaper components and so on. So, basically, they were thinking, where are the cost elements and how do I change it? And what are the new things, that new procedures, new business models I should follow? So, you take the ecosystem. You have this nano, this one, you take the ecosystem, look at the resources, look at the government policies, look at the labor, this one, and look at the delivery mechanisms. Where are the costs involved and how do I change it? And how do I reduce those costs to make it a $2,500 cost? So, that's the kind of thinking that you should have in terms of making it a blue ocean strategy. And blue ocean strategies are very important in emerging markets, because the economic pie is, the market is very huge, but people cannot pay the price. So, there is scale that's available. So, how do you use that scale to get to the market? So, this is how people have to think and do the pricing properly. For example, there are sachets available, the shampoos, the soaps, and other things which are available as in small packets rather than in big bottles. So, people may not have the money to buy big bottles of shampoos and body washes and so on, but when they basically, whenever it requires, they pay a small amount and get a sachet, use it and throw it. So, that's basically the pricing of the product in terms of scale. So, people have to see how to get to the reach into this. So, this example is a very important one in terms of the emerging markets, how to price a particular product. Well, with this Tata Nano and several other things, and also the climate change, the greenhouse gases, and the transportation basically contributes about 18% of the greenhouse gases. So, and the volatile prices of oil has made automakers seek alternatives to petroleum fueled powertrains. So, the engines that you use in the automobile are petroleum fuel. Now, how do I change this trend? Because the oil is becoming expensive, and the oil resources are becoming becoming scarce. So, because of all these factors, is it possible to reduce one thing is to reduce the use of automobiles, and second thing is to find alternate means of powering these things. So, there are car models which are being introduced, and it depends on the condition. For example, in China, they want to use electric cars. That's because they are struggling to reduce the air pollution. Air pollution, not only because the cars transportation increase, and the middle class, they can afford the cars, so that has more greenhouse gases and so on. And the second thing is there are more industrialization, and that is creating problems in China. So, basically there are several cities in China which has basically had this pollution. So, the best solution there is to get to the electric cars. So, they are interested in power generation and also battery companies which will to power the automobiles. Ethanol in sugarcane rich Brazil. And Brazil is a country with agriculture, and it has basically highly productive agriculture, and there is sugarcane rich this one. So, they want to use biofuels, ethanol, to basically drive the cars. So, diesel in oil rich Russia. So, I mean, I am mentioning only a few countries depending on this. You have to, each country has to decide whether it is hybrid car, whether it is a gas driven car, whether it is oil car, or whether it is diesel, petrol, or electric, or whatever, or some other means of driving the car. So, this is where the car models are being innovated and so on. And the other one is the product and service innovation. Second one is the business model innovation. This is another thing that the supply chains need to follow. Business model innovation is reconfiguration of activities in the existing business model of a firm that is new to the product or service markets in which firm competes. So, the firm competes in this one, and what is so to gain an advantage, can you follow a different business model? There are several companies which follow their business models. Business model innovation actually involves, it can involve importing business models from one product service market to another. In other words, you need not have to, it is new for that vertical, but you could have followed from another vertical. For example, Southwest Airlines is one of the cheap airlines. After the liberalization, Southwest Airlines, it's borrowed a business model from interstate bus transportation and applied to the airline industry. In other words, in Southwest Airlines, you can book a ticket online. When you go there, there is no seat allotment. So, first in, first served. So, you can go into the aircraft and take any seat there, and everything else is outsourced. You have to pay if you have check-in baggage. You are encouraged to travel light, and so on. So, there is no, they don't own any of the infrastructure in the airlines, and they have minimum amount of staff. There is except the pilot, nobody else, and they don't serve any meals or etc. inside the aircraft. So, probably they will give you water. So, that's the kind of thing that a business model, and once it is a direct flight from one place to the other, and so this is like interstate bus transportation. And McDonald's brought tension assembly line techniques to the fast food business. If you go to McDonald's, what happens? You go there, pay the money, and whatever you have ordered, it will be flashed onto the kitchen, and they will assemble it. And they have a menu, so you can order only from the menu, and they have the standard products, and depending on what the product is, they will just heat it up, and then, or if it is French fries, they will fry it fresh and then give it to you in standardized boxes. Everything is standardized, including the outfit, where the McDonald's is this one. So, Xerox does not sell copying machines. So, if you want Xerox, this one, but installs and maintains copying machines in offices and charges per page basis. So, it is providing solutions rather than products. So, this is one of the things that this one, if you buy a copying machine, you have to buy all the things like the paper, the cartridge, the ink, and other things. And also you may have to maintain it, this one, and the maintenance expenditure could be large. But instead of all this, Xerox does all this for you, and you have to pay a minimum charge plus per page charges. So, for each page you pay. So, this is very convenient. If there is a new Xerox machine that has come with a new technology, then you can always replace it for free. So, there are several innovations that Xerox has done in this. And power by the either. If you travel by the aircraft engines are not owned by the aircraft owners. Aircraft engines are paid for the number of hours they are in the flying aircraft. If the aircraft is not flying, then they don't get any money. This is called power by the hour. So that's the kind of service business models that people follow. So these innovations, depending on the vertical you have, you can innovate your own models. For example, instead of selling a product through the retailers, you can sell direct. That's an innovation that you can follow. So there are several innovations that in terms of their business models that you follow. Another company I would just want to mention is Cemex. Cemex is a Mexico-based company, and it became the 4th largest cement company in the world. And what their CEO said in 2001 is, we need to supply not only cement, but also a broad range of other building materials, leveraging our world-class logistics distribution capabilities to help our customers succeed. So what they are saying is, cement by itself doesn't add any value. It is used in construction, and for construction you require other materials along with the cement. So you require steel, you require other sand, you require other materials to use this, to mix it and use this. So why not we become a building materials company? And the idea is our customers, this one. So let us do whatever our customers want. In other words, if some customer is building an airport, and cement is only a small portion of whatever they spend, but you help the customer in terms of procurement of all the materials that are needed, which is steel, which is cement, which is the gravel and other kinds of things. And also you help him in architecting the airport. The architecture also becomes a part of your this one. So if you do all this, then your cement becomes incidental, because cement is only a very small part of your this one. So that's how this one. Who are all the customers of Cemex? Yeah, distributors. They sell cement. So for the distributors of cement, or basically distributors for the household materials or building materials, there is like steel, gravel, like sand and other kinds of things. So you help your distributors to get steel. So what happens if you go to a steel company and you say, I am buying on behalf of all these distributors, all these small holders, all these large infrastructures, builders and so on. So similar, the steel company is going to give you at a discount, and it is going to give you high quality, this one. It is going to deliver to your distributor sites. So your distributors, small house builders, they require cement, all right, they require other materials, and more importantly, they require finance. So can you provide finance or help them get finance through microfinance organizations and so on? So ready-mix concrete dealers, value-added transformation companies like slabs, prefabricated complex deals, and large infrastructure companies, the airports, roads, housing complexes, etc. So you find out what the customer wants, make a list, and use your influence, use your connections with all those people, with all the dealers, all the manufacturers and all that, so that all these people are successful. So that's what Cemex does. So Cemex works with its customers and provides solutions which require expertise much beyond manufacture of cement. Well, if you want to do all the things that I have just said, then it is not just cement, but Cemex gets the 4 or 5 times the cement, this one, when they buy gravel, when they buy steel and other kinds of things. So their working capital, their working this one menu is 4 times that of cement. So basically they make a lot of profit, and also they become very popular in terms of with the distributors and so on, and they become basically highly connected to all the stakeholders in the industry, and that is enough to sell the cement. So, selling the cement from Cemex is just incidental. So, that is what we have seen in terms of when you are talking of product and supply chain. So, what matters are just not the product and the services. It also matters the business models. You want to innovate so that you could get more connections, you can get more, you offer more services to this one. But of course, I mean, it involves a lot of work. When you are having, for example, for Cemex, if you are offering to all your customers, to the distributors, a variety of services, well, it involves a lot of work, but it also gives you more profits. So, it also expands your horizon. You know, one thing is to increase your cement plant capacity, go to global and establish this one. Another way of expansion is get into the services which use the cement and expand into them, which probably is much more profitable than just selling the cement. So, one has to think carefully about the product service innovations that are possible. So, the second thing that we are going to look at is the innovations in the delivery service. Let us look at the logistics. One of the things that oh God. So, let us look at the telecom or logistics. One thing is that I think I have the wrong slide. So, here this is just the logistics service chain. You have the manufacturers, infrastructure providers, network operators, voice and dot, this one. I have to replace this slide. So, you have the resources, the institutions and this one. So, what are the innovations in logistics? So, in terms of product and service innovation, you have containerization, transshipment, supply hubs, cross docking, outsourcing, modularization, standardization and so on. And of course, you have packaging, late customization, merge in transit, customs, sensor networks for visibility. These are all the product service, this one. In terms of regulations, you have basically in transportation, you are worried about green, because transportation contributes to 18% of the greenhouse gases across the world. You have to worry about customs because you are crossing continents, and you have to worry about trade, you have to worry about the knowledge, you have to know about both the countries where your shipping is connected. You should have connections with the government, with the authorities, with the companies. You have foreign exchange, you should worry about foreign exchange of this, and also free trade agreements and trade facilitation. So, actually, if you are a logistics company, then you should be able to help your customers in terms of their foreign exchange as well as the others. So, basically, it is not just transporting, it is basically providing other services, like telling the detailed knowledge of this. And also, they are connecting services and technologies, like there is the like RFID, then radio frequency devices, GPS, 3PLs, 4PLs, data integration and mining, remote monitoring and execution, IT services and cloud. They are basically both logistics and IT service execution. As we have seen in case of remote monitoring and execution using BPOs, it becomes a very big issue for logistics companies, because when you are crossing continents, your container may be sitting in a port and you may not know about it. So, basically, if you have RFID tags or sensor networks, you can enable them using GPS, and using remote monitoring, you can know where your containers are and take appropriate action to speed their delivery to the customers and so on. Of course, there are resources and management, there are innovations like training and HR approaches, efficient operations with poor industry inputs. This is one thing that where lots of innovations are this one. People may complain that there are no roads or there are poor roads, and people may complain that there is the there is no one full truckload that's available. So I cannot transfer it. I can transfer only once in a month, and the goods have to wait till I get a full truckload and so on. So, but in such cases, is it possible to transfer goods via the passenger buses or passenger vehicles? What I mean is 80% of air freight travels through passenger aircrafts, 80%. So, there are only companies like FedEx who will just use this for freight of this express delivery of letters and so on. But most of the freight, it travels through passenger aircrafts. Is it possible to replicate that in the bus industry? If you have a bus that is passenger bus that takes people from anywhere to anywhere, say from a state headquarters to a village, is it possible to load some freight into that which is destined to that village, and can it be delivered to the post office, and the customer can collect it from the post office, and post office takes the responsibility because it knows all the customers in the village, and there are 136,000 post offices in India. Almost every village has a post office. So, use the existing service instead of trying to tell people that you want to have the very efficient industry inputs. I don't have roads, I want to have truck services and so on. Instead of that, you want to use with the existing inputs, can you use this? And of course, supply chain finance is another issue that is of importance, and innovative governance models. So, they are all used for the resources and management in the large industry. And there is in terms of delivery, there are also disruptions which are catalyzed by cloud. The cloud computing is one thing that is coming in a big way into the industry. This growth of cloud delivery models help startups to follow pay-per-use model rather than buying, installing and maintaining servers. If you are a small company, you have several employees and they have all their computers. You have to communicate, store all your data at some place and maintain it for audit. It can be financial, industrial data. And so, you have to basically buy, install and maintain all the servers. So, that becomes a capital intensive work. So, instead of that, if there's somebody maintains these services and you just rent them and you follow what is called per use model. So, depending on the GB of data stored and how long they are stored and other services that you require, you are charged. So, as I said before, this is like you are charged for the warehouse space you are using, or you are charged for, if you are traveling on a bus, you are charged for your seat, not for the bus, and so on. So, the new cloud architecture can address the needs of orchestrators trying to manage loosely coupled networks. Now, one thing that happens here is there are several small scale industries all over the world, and they contribute to the production. But the small scale industries, do they have the capability to maintain all the SRP, ERP systems? So, ERP systems are now going on to the cloud, where several SMEs can basically use the ERP, SAP and other and Oracle software systems to manage their this one. Supposing you have several such SMEs, like in April or in small toys, this one, in several of these small scale industries. And supposing one wants to manage all this, in other words, they have their individual cloud databases stored inside the cloud, but can somebody orchestrate these loosely coupled network partners and basically take them, integrate them into the global value chain? So it's now possible using the new cloud architecture. That's because integrating and them into the global value chain and selling it to the big partners in the network, it requires a lot of information exchange, and that's possible through the cloud, because everybody is a small player here and they cannot afford to have the kind of cloud delivery models that are required. So the delivery models that are required by themselves, so they can use the cloud to orchestrate or to manage this loosely coupled network. So it becomes an enabler, a very important enabler for orchestration of small SMEs into the global value chain networks. And finally, there are industries like healthcare, finance, education who get disrupted by the cloud. What I mean is, supposing in the healthcare there is the stock of patient records. Now, these patient records, they can be accessible from the cloud, of course, with a password access. So today the patient records is in the hands of books, or maybe it's on scanned and put somewhere, this one, and you require the patient's permission, the hospital permission and the government permission to access the records, very rightly so. But still, with all these permissions, once I have these permissions, is it possible to access these patient records in an emergency? If the patient is undergoing a surgery and there's something that is required and so on. And is it possible when the patient shifts hospitals, say from emergency hospital to a franchise hospital near his house, is it possible the doctors access instead of the patient carrying these handwritten records, which are sometimes illegible and unreadable? So the patient records, the digital patient records, basically they standardize, or they are more readable and they are more standardized vocabulary, so that every doctor can understand what is written and what is the idea behind the treatments and so on. So you can, these disruptions can be catalyzed by the cloud services. So the delivery service is creating a lot of innovations, like cloud is creating a lot of innovations in a lot of industries and so on. So this cloud is like it has become like making the internet accessible, or the not only internet services but other services like data storage and data access accessible to small players. So cyber security and breach of trust are big issues here. In other words, when you are talking of cloud, you are believing in a third party and you are storing all your data there. So either there could be a breach of trust, or there is somebody can hack into the cloud, and there is the cyber security. They are the big issues which are for the cloud. Another big thing that's happening in recent times in the delivery issues is the big data. Nowadays, big data is something which very popular in terms of, and it is causing disruptive changes in retailing. So what is that a retailer want? It wants to understand the customer behavior. It wants to have on its shelves what the customer really wants at that point in time, and it wants to understand the customer behavior. So how do you get this? You can get all this by surveys, but surveys are becoming very unpopular because the customers may not take it very serious. So how shoppers move around their stores, where they go, in what order, how long they stay, when they come to the store, and how will all these questions map onto actual sales. So now you may go and visit some place, touch the product, go to the look at it, go to other something, and then finally may not buy it. So are you there to find out what is the price? Are you there to find out whether it's useful to you or something? And what is that you are actually buying? So you want to understand customer behavior once he enters a retail store. Retailers are developing predictive models for price discounting, advertising, and couponing. In other words, if you buy something repeatedly from your POS data, point of sale data, Is it possible to analyze, which you either pay through a credit card or whatever? So, is it possible to identify you with what you are buying? If you are frequently buying something, is it possible you can announce saying that if you buy 2, then I get price discounting, or advertising for products? If you go and look at some cell phones or something, can you advertise, we have a new cell phone coming up next week and it has these features and so on, and you say we have coupons which are getting issued next, we have going to have a sale next week and so on. So basically you can send all this information. Forecasting based on past data, batch size calculation using square root formulas are being replaced by real-time visibility and delivery and demand. So you can see a big shift in terms of the how retailers are looking at this. In earlier, what you used to do, you have to do forecasting based on last month's data, last month's sales and so on, and use the square root formula, how much inventory you want to have and all that. But now it's all real-time visibility and delivery and demand. So, for example, Walmart has a technology program, tracks connections between people, products, brands and users to make product recommendations to customers. Well, if you can basically, if you have a cell phone, you will get recommendations. When you are inside the store, you will get the recommendations, depending on what label you are looking at. So, you will get recommendations. So, Walmart aggregates and mines POS data, point of sale data to predict customer buying behavior, and links inventory and purchasing data with the suppliers to speed inventory turns and lower holding costs. So, they want to have only what the customers are buying. They don't want to have anything else in this. So, depending on, so it is the customer behavior and the buying behavior, the data. It is not the last month's sales, it is the current behavior of the customer. What the customer wants today, now, is the one that matters. So, that's the kind of disruption that's happening. And of course, there is a company called Netflix which sells movies, and it has a recommendation system for each subscriber from their viewing habits using sophisticated algorithms. In other words, if you are downloading a movie for viewing, well, depending on what you download, whether it is Hollywood movies or Bollywood movies, whatever, and depending on that, they will make recommendations of what are the new things that are available. So, it requires algorithmic sophistication and so on. So, there is one thing, Target is a company, predicted pregnancy in a teen based on her buying patterns. So, in other words, there is this, is it possible to find out what the human being is going through if you are buying, say, vitamin enriched, the mineral enriched or zinc enriched vitamins, then why are you buying? If you are a lady, then is it a pregnancy? Do you have doctors? This one. So, there are several questions which they can answer depending on your buying behavior, what you are buying. So, of course, there is a privacy issues involved in all this. So, you may think that nobody is watching you when you are in a retail store, but you have to be careful because there is a big data and the algorithms behind, and they are watching you when disruptive retailing. So, in the delivery mechanism, it's not just delivery of the products. It's your behavior that is basically is important to the retailers, and big data is doing big runs in getting disruptive changes in retailing. So, there is an explosion of data. What was once stuff of science fiction has become an everyday occurrence. Exabytes, zettabytes, exabytes, sensors, asset intelligence, mobile devices, constant streams of unstructured communications have created digital exhaust that can capture who we are, how we live and work and play. That's basically it. So, driven by computer algorithms, recommenders help consumers selecting products they will probably like and might buy based on browsing, searches, purchases, and preferences. So nothing confidential anymore. If you are on the internet, then you are known to the entire world. So basically, there is a big data explosion that's happening. And there are basically several trends in terms of the governance that is happening in the recently. People used to own all the assets. So now people are saying don't own all assets, you orchestrate. It's a new mantra in business. Li and Fang does not own any factories, but orchestrates network of 15,000 suppliers and 29,000 employees in 40 countries, supplying goods to well-known consumer brands. And Boeing has 77 jet assemblage of 3 million parts for more than 900 suppliers in 17 countries. Southwest, they only have core branding and the concept of airline, but put together operations out to bid. They lease engines and aircraft, contracted out baggage handling and maintenance. And similarly, logistics providers, the fourth party logistics providers, they basically orchestrate the movement of material from one place to another. So there is a recent trend in terms of the governance as well. So you have an orchestrator and you have the client, and from client gives you the design, and it basically gets to the orchestrator, and material sourcing, factories, quality control and logistics, everything is done by the orchestrator and finally delivered to the client. So this is the kind of governance mechanisms that are basically coming into the future. So we have innovations in terms of resources. IT resources or search engines, wireless communications and internet are the biggest innovations of recent times. Google, Yahoo and several others have become household names. Their convenience created online libraries, Wikipedia, online markets, online deliveries of digital products, advertising, working from home, video conferencing, interconnected camera system for security, cloud computing, all the IT innovations that have come. Cell phones are devices using which you can access all the above facilities from anywhere, anytime. So basically the IT resources innovations are great, this one. And you have the supply chain clusters which are created where you have the clusters which has inbound transportation, raw materials, manufacturers to outbound transportation, distribution, delivery and so on. So you could keep at one place, highly connected, all the people through information flow infrastructure. So that becomes a supply chain cluster for a particular product. They need not have to be co-located, they can be co-located at one place. But the competitive advantage comes in if they are globally located as well as, and they are connected informationally and financially, and then goods flow is manipulated, then you have a competitive advantage. This is one of the big things that has happened in the delivery service, in the resources, this one. Of course, we have seen the resources of clusters. I have went through this particular Californian wine cluster. You have growers, you have wineries, and this is the supply chain here, and you have the resources, the delivery mechanisms, and also the equipment, the barrels and so on in terms of the delivery, all are, and the educational institutions and these institutions, the state governments and other agencies that will respond. So this basically provides, in the terminology of a wine cluster, the supply chain ecosystem on this. California has become a significant player in the wine industry with this. So that is the innovations and the role of the governors. We'll do that next time.